Okay, I got some information on the pension funds. This back in December 10th of 2014, there was a headline, Congress considering plan to allow pension cuts. The subhead, I don't have a, oh, it's by Melanie Hicken. More than 1 million retired and current truck drivers, construction workers, and other union workers could see their pension benefits cut if Congress, and December 2014, this would be Republican Congress, if Congress passes a proposal aimed at shoring up some of the nation's biggest pensions. Shoring up is kind of the wrong phrase for it. But here's the Teamsters responded to this with a press release saying Teamsters denounce inclusion of pension reform bill to omnibus spending plan. See, it got thrown into the big budget, and if you were opposed to it, you would shut down the government, basically. And this is what James Hoff has said, the general president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Today, we've seen the ugly side of political backroom dealings as thousands of retirees may have their pensions threatened by proposed legislation that reportedly includes massive benefit cuts. He says, our union has always opposed pension cuts, and we are disappointed that the House and Senate have decided to take this action while we continue to try to collect more information on this bill, a bill that literally was introduced in the dark of night. The Teamsters will not stand idly by while this legislation is slipped into the omnibus spending bill. This legislation represents substantial changes to policies that have protected the pensions of workers for decades. It should not be changed through procedural manipulation. And here's the amazing thing with this December 2014 addition to the 2015 omnibus spending bill, the budget, basically. Number one, this is from the Pension Rights Center, by the way, their fact sheet on this. Number one, there are instances where the cuts could be more than 60% of a participant's benefits. UPS retirees in the Central States Teamsters plan are given special protection. See, again, this goes back to 2014. Their benefits will be the last in line to be cut. So when you hear Teamsters calling, saying, hey, I got screwed, a whole lot of other people got screwed first, which is pretty astonishing, too. They're probably with smaller unions and less vocal, and we don't know about them. This provision is reportedly the result, back to the Pension Rights Center, this provision is reported the result of a last-minute deal that will save UPS an estimated $2 billion that it otherwise would have been contractually required to pay to its retirees. So this is all about, handing $2 billion to UPS for them to share with their stockholders and their CEOs and their senior executives. And where does that $2 billion come from? It comes out of the hide of the retirees. There is no, number 8, there's no provision for automatic restoration of lost benefits. And most importantly, under this law, it's illegal to sue. Retirees, widows, and widowers whose benefits are reduced cannot bring a lawsuit under the federal private pension law, ERISA, to challenge the legality of the restrictions. The cut to benefits can only be reversed by the Department of Treasury. So if you want to petition somebody to get your pension back, that would be President Obama, because he's in charge of the Department of Treasury. This is one of our callers yesterday. Although I see we've got some UPS on the line here right now. Actually, we have so little time, Shane. Let me bring a caller in on this. Kyle in Eagle Lake, Minnesota. Hey, Kyle. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Great show. But I was calling yesterday about some of the people that had called in about the Teamster Fund. Mm-hmm. And one of them had been a package car driver, and she's working for the government somewhere, which would be about the only reemployment you could do without losing your benefits. But hers is going to be cut immensely because she's considered a terminated employee and not as dependent on the money as what a retiree would be, or a widower, or whatever. So I think hers is going to go from 13 to 436. But that money that's from UPS, they stuck like $7 billion into the Central States Pension Fund as their withdrawal penalty. Back in, that started in 2008, January 1st, the UPS got out of the Central States and started their own fund with its jointly trusteed between UPS and the Teamsters. Uh-huh. So anybody from that point on doesn't lose their, they're going to make up anything that Central States drop. UPS is.
Okay.
But so it was a little bit not quite accurate, I guess. And, you know, it's not that it seems like the anger is going against the Teamsters, and that's the wrong place to put it.
I agree.
It's against the Republican recession.
Yeah.
And, you know, the one caller yesterday that said he was going to lose half of his money, he said, well, they made bad investments. Well, the trustees actually don't invest that money. They have, like, Goldman Sachs or whoever, and they can't even decide who does that. A federal judge. They have to go to a federal judge, and he will say, okay, yeah, you can switch it over to that investment company. So I lost money out of everything that I had invested on. I mean, I work for UPS. So I don't obviously have a lot of money, but my 401, anything else, lost money during that same period of time. Right. You can't blame the pension funds for losing money. It's not only the Teamster fund, it's every fund.
Right, and this should be a real object lesson, and I think this is probably the reason why the corporate media is not reporting this story at all. This should be a real object lesson about what happens if the proposal that George W. Bush put forward in 2005 with regard to Social Security were actually to go into effect, and all of our Social Security became privatized, and we had to go, all of our Social Security funds went to Goldman Sachs, and they invested them in the stock market.
Exactly. Central States right now is paying out $3.46 for every dollar they take in. And they've lost so much of their investment money because they lost it during the recession. And the guy that put that into the omnibus spending bill was John Klein. He's a Republican congressman out of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And it was just a deal. Just
and George Miller.
Everybody, and it did.
And right, George Miller, right. Democrat from California.
And there were some good progressive people, like Bernie Sanders has put bills into Congress to build up or to help bail out the pension funds.
Right, to restore our pension funds.
Just the banks.
Yeah,
right.
But see, we can't restore our pension funds because we've got to have tax cuts for billionaires, Kyle, and we've got to pay for wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Syria and every place else. So, you know, to hell with the American retired workers, right? I mean, you know, it's just a practical matter, isn't it? Kyle, thank you very much for the call. Forgive me for sounding so cynical.